In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make dance pop music, kind of in the style like Charli XCX, Troye Sivan, Petras, or more specifically like Charli XCX's new album Brat. And to do that, I actually remade a song from that album called 360, and I'll break down my remake of the song's elements, the sounds of those elements, the mixing, the structure and arrangement, all that jazz. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you can make a song in a similar dance pop style to this one. Set the tempo around 120 BPM. Start off by making a synth pluck melody. It's a very random melody. It's not like it's structured around chords or anything like that. It's just a melody that's cool and groovy. It's the same melody lowered down to a note underneath it in the same key, and then that whole chunk just an octave lower as well. I use two synth presets from Flex to accomplish this sound. I use this one right here, and I use this one right here. Weird name, to be honest. It's very like a synth plucky sound, and I put a lot of mixing on here. I put this EQ on here to take out a good chunk of the lows, because we're gonna have a very prominent bass line rolling through this, so you don't want the lows of this to counteract with that and make it sound weird. And then boosted a tiny bit of the high end as well, so that you get that crispier essence of the pluck. I put stereo shaper on here as well, because it was a very narrow sound without it. Like, I'll play it without it, and now I'll play it with it. Like, it sounds a lot wider now, and I noticed in the original track, A.G. Cook, who produced the song, used a very wide synth sound for this, and I couldn't really get that on its own, so I put a stereo shaper on there to kind of widen the sound. I put a fruity flangus on here as well to kind of give it a wavy, weird sound, which I know Charli XCX has a lot in the Brat album, just lots of weird, wavy synths. So without the flangus, it sounds like this. Kind of just like in your face, cut and dry. And then with the flangus, it sounds like this. Kind of brings it in the background more and kind of wavy around, I don't know. And then all the elements are going to have a sidechain on here, just a little tiny bit. Next, I make a bass line that complements the melody. I think the best way to make this is kind of just playing around with some notes from the melody, form it around the melody, and then play around with some of the octaves here. Like, for example, if you have like this rhythm, move the note down, kind of play around with the octaves, make it a little bouncier, and then play around with like the note lengths and stuff, kind of bounce from note to note, stuff like that. I use 3 bass presets to accomplish this sound. I use this slap bass preset from MHA's Vital Sound Bank Volume 2, this bass preset from MHA's Vital Sound Bank Volume 1, and then this 808 preset from Flex over here. So the first one's like a higher end bouncy bass, the second one's like a medium lower end bouncy bass, and then the last one is to help amplify the lower end with an 808. For mixing, I put a Fruity Blood overdrive on here to really give this bass a punch and amplification, and then I put a kickstart on here as well. Next, add some extra synth for some filler. This is just for some ear candy and for some background filler to fill up the mix. To make something like this, you could just play around with some steady rhythm notes. The main rhythm would be something like this over here, but instead it goes all the way up to here, staying in the key, playing around with the notes like that. All I did is I used the Synth 3 preset from Citrus. And for mixing, I put the same EQ from the melody from earlier for the same reasons, and then the same sidechain on there as well. Now for the drums, I used an 808 kick. And that rhythm might sound familiar. That's because it follows the bass to a T. You want that. You want the kick to follow the bass so that the bass has more punch to it. You do not want to hear the kick by itself. If you do, then you're doing something wrong. And you see the kick does not play here because the bass does not play here. So I removed it like that. Keep it in line exactly with the bass. Next, for the clap, I just have a standard 808 clap with another preset that I have as well. And then you might think this is a hi-hat over here. This is not a hi-hat over here. This is a sampled shout, hey, whatever you want to say. And it kind of acts like a hi-hat, to be honest with you, but it sounds better with the sampled shouting instead of like an actual hi-hat sound. Together, the full drum loop sounds like this. Feels like you're in the club now. And for mixing, the only thing I put on here was a Fruity Blood overdrive with the main knob turned up a little bit just to really give that edge of amplification to the drum sounds. For actual like volume mixing, I know I kind of leave that out for a lot of my tutorials. You kind of just want the levels to be the same volume for the kick and for the snare. So just adjust accordingly to where it's about the same consistently. Now for the structure and arrangement of this track, all I recreated was like an intro or verse area and then like part 1 of the chorus and part 2 of the chorus. So for like an intro or verse, I just have the melody playing by itself with obviously the vocals. And then for like the part 1 of the chorus, I have the same melody going, but then you add the bass, the kicks and the claps. Chorus part 2, you put everything all together. You have the melody, bass, synth filler, kicks, claps, and the shouting sample down here as well. So this is what the final structure of the track looks like over here. And after all that, here's the final result.
Work angles, yeah, 360. When you're in the mirror, do you like what you see? When you're in the mirror,